These are all the books I read in January. I'm going to go through them with you and tell you my thoughts. Hello everyone, welcome back. I did get 2 5-star reads this month, which is pretty crazy. And the first one was my first book of January, which I started on the 1st, and that was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I've only ever read one book by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and that was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. When I heard this was about astronauts, I was a bit skeptical, wasn't too sure what I was going to think. However, boy, was I wrong. This is the only book this month which has actually made me cry. I cried at the end. It was happy tears, but it was just such a beautiful book. The book is centered around someone called Joan, and she working in NASA, training to be an astronaut, going up to space, and there's an incident in the beginning of the book, and it kind of flips between the incident and now, sort of like, I think it's about 7 years difference between the two, so you go back and forth and you have a better understanding of the characters and what happens and blah blah blah. I really enjoyed the characters. There wasn't anyone that I didn't like in the book, which is kind of rare. I have also got there's a nice long hair on that. I have made a reading journal for the year, and I've done spreads for most of these books. So I've got Atmospheres here. I don't know if you can really see that. I'll put a photo of the actual spread up on the screen. So it took me 8 days to read, and I rated it 5 stars, and I read this from the 1st of January to the 8th of January. It was a very easy read. I just wasn't quite in the swing of, I wasn't reading as much as I am these days. I've definitely got faster throughout the month, I think. Yeah, I would really recommend that book. And I've got Daisy Jones and the Six, I've got on my TBR, and I have actually got the physical copy of that, so I'll be reading that hopefully this year. Then the next book was quite a small book that I read, and it was Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and this is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and I don't think I've said that right at all, but basically this book appealed to me in Waterstones just because it had such a pretty cover, and I didn't really know much about it, but I had a quick look at what it was about. This is actually part of a series, and I think it follows the same cafe that's involved. So the basis of this book was, there is this cafe in Tokyo. There's a legend that says that if you go to this cafe, you are able to travel to the past with certain rules that are involved. And the rules are that you have to sit in a specific chair that is pretty much always occupied. You cannot leave the chair when you go back to the past. You cannot change anything about the past. The way you go back to the past is that you get poured a cup of coffee and you have to return to the present before the coffee gets cold, basically. And there's only a couple of characters in this book, and I really liked all these characters, and I was actually quite surprised how much I loved this book. I can't remember what I rated it. I want to say 4 stars or 3.9 stars. I'm quite harsh when it comes to ranking, but now that I'm looking back on it, I would probably give it 4 star. I think it was just that it was so short, but I do want to read the rest of them. I did give it 4 stars. So this is my spread for this book. Again, I'll probably put the picture on the screen. 3 days, so I read it from the 8th of January to the 11th of January. I really got transported there when I was reading this book. I found it really easy to follow. I found it really easy to picture the cafe and the characters and what everything looked like, and I have a visual image still in my head of what everything looks like. So yeah, I would highly recommend this one. I enjoyed all of these books this month. I think my TBR is pretty strong. Then I read You'd Be Home Now by Kathleen Glasgow, and I've read Girl in Pieces by her a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed that. This was definitely a different vibe to the other books. This was really, really good as well. I think I might have given this 4 stars, maybe even more. I gave this 4.25 stars. Here's the spread. This book was emotional. It didn't make me cry, but it was really quite intense, but in the best way. I would recommend checking trigger warnings before you read this, because it is about drug abuse and addiction. It basically follows Emmy, who is the middle child, I think. And her older sister is at uni. The book basically starts with a car crash, and there's this girl, Kathy, that doesn't make it out of the car crash, and they were coming back from a house party, and there was all different types of things involved, and you basically just follow Emmy's side of the story, who was in the car, and how she perceives everything and how her brother's addiction affects her, basically. I really like the characters in this. Again, it's the kind of thing where there's popular boy, not so popular boy she can see from her bedroom window, and he's a family friend, or they used to talk when they were younger or something. I can't quite remember, but you know the kind of vibe. A lot happens that sort of depicts secondary school and you know, those teenage things. But I did, again, really enjoyed it. It was quite heavy. I really, really like the style of her writing. I don't think it took me that long. No, I read this in 4 days. And it's, how many pages? 387. Yep, that one was 4.25 stars. The Garden Party, which was one of the books that I got in a deal from the works that was like 3 for £7.50, and there are actually some really good books in that bargain. I didn't really know anything about this book. It kind of just looked like that psychological thriller style that I do really enjoy. I don't know what did I rate this one. I rated this one a 3-star. You can't really see the spread very well because the writing is green, and I didn't really tab that many pages in this book because it wasn't the kind of book where it was like, wow, this is a work of art, as in there weren't any. I really enjoy when there's certain phrases in the book or things the author writes that I just like really hits home, and there wasn't that many of those. It was more kind of like I was reading a film basically. But I really enjoyed this. This was about, what's the main character called? Harry? Is it called Harry? Harris. He's at uni and he's living with this family, and the family that he's living with he basically hates and has all these secrets that he basically wants to expose at the son of the family's engagement party. The perfect family, the perfect celebration, the perfect day for revenge. And so yeah, you basically follow Harris and he meets the boy along the way. There's not really that much romance in this. It was quite dark, like a dark psychological thriller, and it was quite a quick read, oh my gosh, that's such a tongue twister. Quite a quick read, because it was so easy to read. I think I was able to read it really, really fast. I read this in 3 days, from the 14th of Jan to the 17th of Jan. I would recommend. The next book was recommended to me to read, and that is Pigeon English by Stephen Kelman. This was quite a heartfelt book. This is written from the perspective of Harrison, he's newly arrived in England from Ghana with his mother and older sister Lydia. It's very London, it made me laugh a lot, which is quite rare for a book. 11-year-old Harrison, the second best runner in Year 7, races through his life in England hope they get to where they need to be. So 11-year-old Harrison, the second best runner in Year 7, races through his new life in England in his personalised trainers, the Adidas stripes drawn on with marker pen, blissfully unaware of the very real threat around him. Newly arrived from Ghana with his mother and older sister Lydia, Harry absorbs the many strange elements of city life, from the bewildering array of Haribo sweets to the frightening, fascinating gang of older boys from his school. But his life is changed forever when one of his friends is murdered. The victim's football boots hang in tribute to him on railings behind fluorescent tape, and a police appeal draws only silence. So Harry decides to act, unwittingly endangering the fragile web his mother has spun around her family to keep them safe. I would really recommend this book. When I was looking online, it seems as though this might actually be a book that is used for GCSEs now, and I do really see why. The bit I didn't understand was that there is a pigeon involved, and the pigeon has something to say every now and then, but it is literally illegible to me. Like, I just didn't understand what the pigeon was all about, to be honest. Again, it is quite, would I say it's dark? Yeah, it's quite dark, but the ending hit me, but I did not enjoy the ending. I thought there would have been a much better way to end this book. I'm a bit frustrated, but maybe that makes it better. I'm not sure. So I think for that reason, I gave it 3.5 stars, and it took me 3 days to read, the 18th till the 21st. I did enjoy, this is the kind of vibe I mean about the humour in this book. So some of my favourite quotes were, "I can make a fart like a woodpecker. I swear it's true. The first time it happened was an accident. I was just walking along and did one fart, but then it turned into lots of little farts all chasing it. But Mr. Frimpong's so old that there are spiders in his ears. I've seen them with my own 2 eyes. If you don't say jinx, you'll shit yourself for one day after." Yeah, it was really sweet, written in the style of a 7-year-old? Year 7 boy, basically. Don't rate the ending, Stephen. Sorry about that one, mate. Then the last book I read in full was my other 5-star read, which was The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. When I was about to read this, I looked on Goodreads, and there was such a 50-50 split of people saying it was 1 stars to 4-5 stars, basically, and I was a bit confused as to how there'd be such a divide. So it follows Rowan and Zara. They each have a chapter, that kind of vibe. At the start, it wasn't dragging, but it was taking me a little while to get into because I just hated Rowan. Like, he is such a nasty guy. However, he did grow on me. I do understand why some people dislike this book, because some of his actions are like not very nice, and he's very like misogynistic. Zara is a lovely character, and he did grow on me because he learnt some lessons along the way. It is a romance, and it's about a place called Dreamland, which sort of like owns within his family, and his grandfather dies at the beginning. That's not a spoiler because it literally has already happened when the book began. And he's basically got tasked with, from his grandfather's will, he has to basically rejig Dreamland for the better in order to get his share of the inheritance, and his brothers have other tasks as well. And I believe that there's some other books in the series that follow his brothers and probably what their tasks have like led to. So he is stuck up, and he is like rich man with massive ego, like, yeah, eye roll. And she is the sweetest girl. She comes from a poorer background. Her parents don't really have much money, and she has been a Dreamland employee for her whole life, and as of her family. This was one of the books where it had loads of great quotes that I thought, wow, that is such a great simile, or just such a well put thing, basically. The reason I rated it 5 stars was because I was so in this book, and even though I didn't like the characters, that's why at the time I gave it 4.5, I think. But actually, I would read it again. It takes a lot for me to say. I do want to read the other 2 books, and therefore, for that, I'm giving it 5 stars. I don't know how long this took me. Oh, I haven't actually done a spread for this book yet because I want to make it really pretty and draw like roller coasters. It's kind of like giving Disneyland, basically. That's what Dreamland is. Started on the 22nd, finished on the 28th, but the last couple of days I was reading a lot, and it was 433 pages. I think that might have been the longest book this month. And then now, so I've read half of my next book. This is the 1st of Feb, but I haven't read any today. So as of yesterday, which was the 31st, I've read half of If He Had Been With Me, which I think is a Mandela effect because I'm sure it was called If Only He'd Been With Me. But the other perspective, Finn's perspective, is If Only I'd Told Her, and this is Autumn's perspective. I have read this before a couple of years ago, but I remember crying my eyes out, and I wanted to read it again because I was about to start reading If Only I'd Told Her, but then I realised I can't really remember much of the characters. I knew the general plot and like what happened in the beginning and what happened in the end, and as I'm reading it, I don't remember as much as I thought I would. So it is kind of fun to read because it's like I'm sort of reading the middle part again whilst knowing what's coming, basically. I'm sure you've read this, but this is basically about Autumn and Finn. I don't really want to say what happens in this book because if you haven't read it, all I can say is read it, and it will seem like a young adult, but to me, if I read this when I was any younger than like 18, I would have probably been broken because it did break me at the age of, I guess it's probably only 19 to be fair. But still, it's a heart-wrencher. That is all the books I read this month. I have also been listening to Alchemized on audiobook. That is 36 hours long, that book. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I really enjoyed part 1. I'm on part 2 now, and I'm just a bit confused, to be honest. Like, there's so many different characters, so many different words, and I'm kind of struggling with the story building because it jumped from now to before, and now like I can't really picture a lot of what's going on, and I'm confused about the terminology they use. But I've got 21 hours left. I'm on chapter 35, so I've listened to 15 hours this month. Is that maths right? Because I'm sure that you only get 15 hours on Spotify, and it cut me off like halfway through. I don't know. That is all the books I read. This month I want to read, I'm going to finish this book. I want to read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I want to finish Alchemized so I can get on to Throne of Glass, but I don't want to read them at the same time because I feel like it's going to be too much for my brain to have that much fantasy. I was talking to a girl that I know from Instagram, and she has told me to read the Chloe Walsh Binding 10 series, Binding 13. I think it's called Boys of Torment, and obviously I've heard of that series, but the books are so intimidating, and there's like 12 of them or something. Maybe there's 8, I can't remember, but I do want to read those. I just need to like purchase them first, and I've got a lot of books up in my shelf that I could probably read first. I don't know what else I've got up there. Elsie Silver, Flawless, I want to read. I think that's going to be quite a nice book, and I have got Rest of the Chestnut Spring series on the way to me. I do want to listen to The Housemaid as well by Frida McFadden because I've got that book and I want to watch the film, and I think I'll really enjoy her writing because I love a psychological thriller. But my friend didn't mean to, but she spoiled the ending for me, so I've been put off actually reading that book. But they always have like deals in Tesco for Frida McFadden books. And I've also bought a book by Rebecca Yarros, who I believe wrote Fourth Wing, but it's not It's called The Things We Leave Unfinished. So I think I might read that, and then after Throne of Glass, I do want to read Fourth Wing this year at some point. Bring on the February reads. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you read any of those books and what you thought of them. If you're still here by the end of this video, comment down below what you're currently reading. Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to stick around, because I'm only small on here. I'm actually only small in real life as well. I'm literally 5'3". I would really appreciate it, and thanks for watching. See you on the next one. Bye.